righty. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for popping in to another episode of our Build Your Business series here. And, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, Jessica Peters. Jessica, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Fantastic. So, let everyone kind of pile on in here and, get their coffee, get situated. But,
Mhm.
one thing just want to let everybody know, just as usual, we have our chat and Alicia's moderated. So just put any questions you have for Jessica right into the chat for us there. Otherwise, if you want, you can come off mute at the end once she's done with her presentation. And if you have any questions, we can do it that way. So Jessica is a licensed marriage LMFT. I was like, what is that? Licensed marriage family therapist, right? And she's going to kind of go over some stress management. Oops, my oh, there we go. My Siri picked up my talking there. But talking about some strategies to maintain right stress and balance that personal and family life and all that good stuff. I was just mentioning, in the real estate industry, every day we wake up, we say we wake up unemployed, right? A lot of times. So it can be a very stressful, situation. And so this is well timed here. So having said all that, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica. And then once again, put your questions in the chat there for her if you have any. So fantastic. Jessica, thanks so much for coming, and I'll let you take it away.
Sounds great, thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here to talk with the group about, important parts of taking care of ourselves when we're in a industry like yours where things are always shifting and changing. So today we're going to spend a little time talking about how to manage stress and build resilience in all of the work that you do. So I'm going to get my presentation going here. Let's see. Can we see that?
Let's see. Sometimes it takes a
Oh,
second here. Not yet, though. Uh,
let's see. Let me try again.
and I think. Oh,
Okay.
here we go. Oh, beautiful. Okay. Um,
Okay.
and
Can't see my notes.
there we go.
Are we good? Can you see the notes though too?
Let's see here. I do see thriving under pressure. There is a little pop-up box that says allow or open system settings. Do you see that? Um,
Yes.
okay,
Okay.
gotcha. Um, And I think once that's out of the way,
Okay.
okay, yeah, and we see thriving under pressure.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds good. Let me move this over.
cool.
Okay. So, yes, let's jump right in. So, I know I can't see you, most of you, but I want you to just kind of raise your hand to yourself or kind of think to yourself if you've ever taken a client call while eating lunch in your car or responded to a text at 10 o'clock p.m. because it felt like the deal depended on it. So, I'm assuming this is many of you, this is your reality. And so I just, want to start off by saying I see you, and I might not work in real estate, but I do work with people whose jobs depend on hustle, relationships, and being on all the time. So I'm a psychotherapist and a coach, and I spend a lot of time supporting professionals like you, people who are successful, ambitious, and deeply committed to what they do, but who sometimes put their own well-being last. So today isn't about telling you to meditate for an hour a day or unplug completely. It's about realistic, sustainable ways to protect your energy, improve your focus, and show up, not just for your clients, but for yourself. So let's get right into it. So, as David said, I'm Jessica and I'm thrilled to be here. Today we're diving into something that I think is essential for thriving in real estate. It's managing stress and enhancing real resilience. And when I talk about resilience, I'm not talking about the grit your teeth kind of resilience. I'm talking about the kind that actually helps you stay grounded, focused, and connected to yourself while doing this intense work. So, as you know, firsthand, real estate isn't just about homes and numbers. It's emotionally demanding work. You're managing a lot with and for your clients and in your role as their guide. There's uncertainty, even in the best of circumstances. And there are financial pressures, and then there's the relationship with with that you have with your clients and then that your clients have if you're dealing with couples or families. And you all might feel like therapists at some points as you navigate your clients' emotions, dynamics between couples and families, and the logistics and coordination of connecting with clients, all while maintaining your professionalism and promoting um, a dynamic of collaboration. So, not to mention, you might need to adjust your approach between clients. Some might need more hand holding, some appreciate a more direct approach, and on and on. So, keeping all of these balls in the air and constantly juggling can pile up. And stress, as we all, experience it, stress is normal, but when it becomes chronic and continues to persist day after day for months and years, it changes how your brain and body function. So, experiencing stress and having a real reaction to it doesn't mean you're weak or deficient. It's our body's way of responding to the things that are tough and to kind of letting us know that that we need to make some adjustments. So I'm going to kind of read this quote from the slide. So I haven't had a weekend off in months, and I'm constantly checking my phone so that I can respond quickly when messages come in. I react every time my phone pings. So does this sound familiar to anyone? I'm assuming it does. Always being on, kind of always being in a reactive mode. So it can be really tough to carve out time for a real break when you're reacting in that way. Um, so along those lines, I'd love if I could get some interaction and engagement. We'll check in the chat. So, what are two words that come to your mind when you think about the stress of your work? Um, how does that feel for you? What is your experience when you think of the stress of your work? See if I can see anything in the chat.
We do have one thing on the chat.
Okay.
Nicole is saying every day is always the same on call kind
Yes.
of situation.
Yeah, just always being on, just always, yeah, kind of having
Always being available. Mhm.
always being available, always having it in the back of your mind. Not sure when you're going to hear back from somebody or if you have clients to get back to, but you need to get more information. So just always being on can be really hard and take a toll. So we want
Yeah,
to,
yeah. We also have Jean-Luc saying not in control. So the feeling of a loss of control.
right, right. Because if you're depending on others to get back to you or connecting with your clients and it's ultimately their decision. It's hard to kind of function within that environment and figure out how and where you can and get some control. So I'm guessing that these feelings are shared among some of your colleagues, and thank you for sharing in the chat. So you're not alone. I think it's important to recognize that, and these opportunities to get together can help reinforce that you're not alone. People are dealing with similar things, and everybody is trying to figure out how to manage these stressors. Thank you. Let's see. So now we're kind of going to move on to what stress does to you and how it impacts your body and your mind and understanding the costs of chronic stress. So chronic stress really narrows your focus, but not in a good way. It can make it harder to think clearly, to remember details, and to stay present with clients. Stress can show up as our instinctual reaction to go into survival mode. And some of you might be familiar with the idea of fight, flight, and freeze when faced with a stressor. So, back in the caveman days, these instincts protected people when a saber-toothed tiger was chasing them, and their body reacted by assessing the situation and literally deciding whether to fight back, run away, or freeze. And so this same um, core part of our brain still gets activated in times of stress, and our present day instinct may show up not as running or fighting a tiger, but as getting defensive or pushing back, which would be kind of a fight response, avoiding difficult tasks or conversations, which is akin to a flight response, or doing nothing, where you just kind of freeze, you're kind of stuck. And the accessibility of technology and scrolling and reaching for our phones makes it even easier to flee or freeze. I'm guessing again, I can't see you raise your hands, but kind of think to yourself, the question is, how many of you zone out on your phones when you need a mental break? It's so common, and I do it too. And what we want to try to add is a little moment of pause or a little 2-second check-in with ourselves before we reach for the phone, to recognize what we're doing, and how we're reacting, to maybe make the connection that, I just had a really tough call, or I'm feeling stressed because I'm waiting for a call and I can't get back to my client. And just notice that you're reaching for a distraction or your phone. And then if you have a little more time to get curious, you might think about whether um, whether that action is preventing you from doing something else that you know you need to do, and whether we actually feel better or worse for having taken a phone break. Maybe a deep breath or stepping outside into the fresh air would be a more impactful way to reset. So this isn't a commentary on scrolling or reaching for our phones, but just a opportunity to notice how we take care of ourselves and what our instincts are during times of stress. So the more we know about how we react, the more we can maybe bring a different sort of mindfulness to the situations. So, and we might feel more reactive or tired, even when we're not physically overworking. So these are all ways our body handles stress. We might notice that you have a hard time focusing or can't remember the details of a conversation you just had. And that's your body conserving its resources and going into survival mode. And over time, this repeated kind of chronic daily stress can impact your physical health, your immune system. You might have more colds or just not feel well, and even how you sleep and your digestion. So chronic stress doesn't just make you tired, it affects client relationships, follow-up, consistency, decision making, and even your long-term health. And I'm guessing that some of you have experienced some of these health impacts from, poor sleep, to just physical symptoms. And so left unmanaged, this type of stress can lead to burnout or, breakdown of business, either the relationships or the logistics. I've seen careers derailed not from lack of skill, but from things like burnout or lack of support, because we're just not in our, best mind for managing the business and making clear decisions. So, um, again, if you're able to enter anything in the chat, another opportunity to kind of interact with each other is, how do you know when stress is catching up with you? Like, what are your physical symptoms? Where do you notice it in your life? Are you snapping at people? Are you sleeping poorly? Are you forgetting to respond to emails or phone calls? You
Yeah,
can put it.
we did have some other comments before. There's kind of a theme of running after things versus planning ahead, trying to find the calm in the chaos, and negotiating with yourself on different needs that you may have.
Mhm. So I think some of those continue to speak to the reactivity in the that's kind of inherent in the work as opposed to you can have the best laid plans and things don't go accordingly. And so that reactivity can be hard because you're always feeling like you have to jump into action. Um, so yeah, that makes sense. And then what can you repeat a couple of the others?
Sure. And then Jean-Luc mentioned it's a mix of all the symptoms you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
gradually. So running after things versus planning,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find the calm,
Mm-hmm.
that seems to be the running.
Yeah. So as we continue, we'll talk about a few strategies for how you might be able to try to find the calm. And I think it's important to also kind of be realistic in our resets and have really, bite-sized moments. It's not necessarily day to day or even hour to hour, but more moment to moment, how you can find those opportunities to bring some calm. So we'll keep going and t talk more about that. But thank you for the sharing. So now that we understand what stress does, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to recognize your own stress signals. Um, so everyone has their own stress signature. Maybe your thoughts get foggy or negative. Maybe you notice tension in your body, in your jaw, in your stomach, tight shoulders, and then behavior can change too. Maybe you're a little snappy or find yourself zoning out during conversations. So again, I want to take, a few seconds to do a quick check-in with your body and just note to yourself, we don't have to put it in the chat. Notice how you're feeling today. You're at the end of the week. Maybe it's been a long week, maybe it's been a smooth week. But just notice how you're feeling. I think it's so common to not even really check in with our bodies and our state of mind and just really like, hey, I'm at Friday. It's at the end of that long week. Maybe have a long weekend ahead and how am I feeling?
Right. We did have one note in the chat. I get 3 calls before 8 a.m. every day, and I have to put a ban on calls before 8 a.m.
Yeah,
Maybe creating some boundaries.
right. Yep, I can imagine that that is a time when probably clients are available, right? You commute to work or just dropped off kids or who knows. But yeah, putting a boundary around your own availability to protect your own well-being. That makes sense. And communicating that with folks. And then I also, another self-reflection, you don't have to put this one in the chat, but I want you to think back to your last like really stressful week. And what was your first clue that you were running on empty? And it might be some of these, early warning signs that we're talking about here with racing thoughts or a tight jaw or poor sleep or just being withdrawn or snapping at people. So just kind of think about what clues your body and mind give you when you're kind of running on empty. And if we really think about it, most of us do have clues that we're in a stress response or reacting in ways that we wish we wouldn't. And so if we can tune into those, then we can pause, notice, and then see how we can incorporate some ease.
Absolutely. And
So,
Nicole's
oh,
mentioning even at a more taxed level, shaking hands, body goes into kind of a little bit of a shock.
okay. The physical
Mm.
contact. Yeah. And so I think that's helpful to have an understanding of the kinds of things that feel uncomfortable in your body and how you could maybe make some changes or adjustments to see if you can if there are ways to minimize the impact, or to even have a little ritual afterwards. Like maybe if you're in a situation where there's lots of things that feel um, difficult or uncomfortable or stressful, there's a time that you build in where 5 minutes after that, you take a minute to listen to a podcast or take a 5 minute walk or do something that feels like a reset. So I'm going to keep moving on. We're going to talk about some tools that could be helpful. So now that we have some ideas about how stress impacts us and our own stress response, how can we continue to show up with resilience in the face of the inevitable stress of our daily lives and all of the things that you all are sharing? And I'm really grateful for the shares so that you all, as a professional group, can see that, what you're experiencing, others are experiencing too. I think that's really helpful. So now we're going to talk about some tools that can actually fit into your packed day. And so these are kind of what I call micro tools. They're not big life overhauls, and you can walk away with something you can try today and into the days and weeks ahead. These are three simple tools that I use with my clients and use myself, and they don't require an app, more time on your phone, a weekend retreat, or extra time that you don't have. So the first one is called a micro reset. The second one is focused on boundaries, which came up in the chat. And the third tool helps us reframe setbacks. So to start with the first one, a micro reset. So this is really a pause button for your nervous system. When stress hits, our breathing speeds up and our brain and body get the signal that there's something we need to react to. And this might be when you're reacting to all the pings and the phone calls and the starting your day at 8 a.m. with texts and emails and phone calls that where you haven't even fully transitioned into your workday yet. So often when we get those incoming, those literal incoming messages, our brain and body also, go into a reaction or a mode that there's something we need to do. And probably for some, it might feel like something you need to address immediately. So taking a micro reset can pause that or flip that situation. So we're going to try a couple together. So if you're in a place where you can, we're going to start with a breathing exercise. So if you're in a place where you can put your feet flat on the floor and sit back in your chair. And if it's comfortable for you, please close your eyes. And I want you to breathe in slowly for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now exhale gently for a count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, inhale for 4 and exhale for 6. And one more time. Inhale for 4 and exhale for 6. And I just want you to notice how your body responds. I know it's the beginning of the day, but this might be the first deep breath that you've had yet today, or it might be the first deep breath that you can remember all week. And so just notice how that feels in your body. And it's pretty amazing what a few simple deep breaths can do for us. And the longer exhale, there's a rhyme and reason to it that helps us combat this fight or flight response that we were talking about earlier. So now I want to take you through one other kind of experiential body-based micro reset exercise. So this is what I refer to as a body scan, and some of you may be familiar with things like this. So again, just get comfortable in your chair and make sure your feet are flat on the floor. And just start by noticing your breath and close your eyes if that feels comfortable. And no need to change your breath, just notice it. Now gently shift your awareness to your feet and notice the contact with the floor. Notice any sensations you feel. If the surface your feet are resting on is hard or soft. Do your feet feel warm or cold? And just continue to breathe in and out. And now shift your awareness from your feet up to your lower leg, your calf muscles, and notice how these muscles feel, if there's any tension. And notice and let go as you continue to breathe in and out. And slowly keep moving your awareness further up your legs, past your knees, to your thighs and hips. This part of the body does a lot of work supporting you throughout the day. Notice any stiffness or soreness that might rest here and let it go. Still breathing in and out, in and out. Now slowly shift your awareness up your lower back, following your spine until you arrive at your shoulders and neck. These areas are where many of us tend to hold stress, especially in the shoulders and neck. And feel your chest and abdomen expand as you breathe in and contract as you push the air out. Repeating this cycle, notice any tension that exists in these areas as you inhale and gently let it go as you exhale. There's nothing else to do right now besides sitting in this moment, paying attention to how your body is feeling, breathing in and out. Next, shift your attention up your neck and through your jaw, another place many of us hold tension, and up to the crown of your head. Relax the muscles in your face and notice how your breath feels as you continue to breathe through your nose, maybe out your mouth. Just continue to breathe. And as we come to the end, try bringing your attention to your whole body and releasing any residual tension. And know that you can always return to this peaceful place whenever you like. And when you're ready, if your eyes were closed, you can open them and return to your surroundings. So I wanted to take the time to walk through that one fully, the body scan, because I think it's very powerful to see in, just 60 seconds, maybe a little more. You could shorten that if you wanted. You can really reset during a stress or after a stressful moment. And the first breathing exercise is something that you can do before or even during a stressful moment. You can try the deep breaths even in a meeting or during a client showing, or when you're around others. You can easily do the deep breathing. So this can take 60 seconds or less, and it can really stop the stress from snowballing and getting bigger and worse. So it can help you shift from dread or worry to a state of calm, which can be really impactful. So moving on to another tool, talking about boundaries, and this came up with the person who commented on getting the calls before 8 a.m. and setting a boundary there. So we often think of boundaries as saying no, but really they're about protecting your own energy so that you can say yes with intention. Maybe that's not responding to texts past 8 p.m. Maybe it's 15 minutes between meetings or showings instead of back-to-back meetings or showings. Boundaries are part of how you recover, stay present, and protect your focus. By assessing how you structure your days and your interactions, you might find opportunities to create boundaries in service of providing you with something that you need, which might be a walk, 5 minutes of downtime, um, things like that. So we're all used to being so available, reachable, and responsive at all times. And I think it's worth wondering whether it's truly necessary. And I realize in your work, sometimes it might be. But I also would invite you to think of one small way that you could create a boundary to protect your time and your own well-being. And if you feel comfortable sharing that in the chat, I'm sure your colleagues might appreciate seeing practices that others might be currently doing or willing to try, um, and thinking about how you can carve out some time and protect yourself. Um,
We did have Patrick in the chat. He mentioned it's nice to have a phone message that you reply to all business calls between 11 and 12 and 4 to 5 each day, kind of
mhm.
giving a little boundary there.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. Really being clear so you don't have to have the stress of thinking that your clients aren't getting back to you. You're kind of preemptively sharing what your process is and when people can expect to hear from you. That's great. One realtor that I worked with started blocking out one lunch break a week that wasn't negotiable. And she said it saved her week every week. So just knowing that she had this time coming, she wasn't going to fill it with anything else. It helped her find a calm in the midst of a busy week. So boundaries really are a business strategy. Um, and as you know, we've discussed several examples around limits, around hours of texting or when you're available in client communication. I also think it's helpful to acknowledge that when we talk about boundaries, it might feel uncomfortable at first. We're so used to putting others' needs ahead of our own, especially when we feel like it's might be part of our work. Um, so just because it might feel uncomfortable to try something new and setting a boundary doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's new. So we want to have some patience with ourselves if we're thinking about how we might set a boundary and how others might react to that. So the third tool I want to talk about is reframing setbacks. So, as you all know, deals fall through, clients don't reply, closings stall, and these things are hard. And how we respond matters more than what happens. So, one way to manage disappointment and emotional impact after a challenging conversation or transaction can be to ask a simple question. What is still in my control? I know somebody mentioned this in the chat earlier. It feels like often things are out of your control. So perhaps there's a invitation to think about what might still be in your control. And this can shift our thinking from powerless to proactive and from stuck to thinking strategically about our next move. And a no isn't always a failure. It can sometimes be a redirect or feedback. And so we want to, normalize that disappointment, having things fall through. It's part of work, and just because something does or doesn't happen might not have anything to do with your efforts, and we don't need to pile on a feeling of um, you know being hard on ourselves about something that might be out of our control. So I'd invite you to reflect, think of a recent setback and how did you handle it and what was one thing that was still in your control or one thing that you learned in that situation. Feel free to share in the chat, but you also don't have to. Just curious for you all to think about handling setbacks and what it might be in your control. So we're coming to the end here, but as we kind of think through this presentation, I'm curious about which tool feels like it could be most useful to you right now. Micro resets, energy boundaries, or reframing. And I would love for you to think about how you could apply it in the coming week. So if you're in a place where you can take a few minutes to jot down a note, either on your phone or a piece of paper, a notebook, wherever, just send an email to yourself. So take a minute and think about how and when you'll use one tool over the coming week, or if you have a weekend ahead, if you have a busy weekend ahead, think about how you could maybe incorporate a tool this weekend. And then to kind of take it a step further, I'd love for you to think, 3 months into the future. So we're in, January. We've gotten through the holidays, and we're in January. And I would love for you to think about if you start to incorporate a tool, one of the tools we talked about today, or something else, and you're feeling like you're incorporating regular practices to manage stress and build resilience. I want you to think about how you might feel 3 months from now if you take some small steps. Think about what might be different, what might be more manageable. Um, Again, you can share if you want some extra accountability with your peers and colleagues. You could share it in the chat. If you want to keep it to yourself, just write a note for your own reflection and to return to. That works too.
Yeah, Anna was saying setting schedule and boundaries was, and Patrick was saying the body scan was a nice reminder. So sounds
Mhm.
like everybody's taking, one of those. I tell you, the breathing part for me was wonderful.
Oh, good.
I mean, I just, you don't really take the time to properly, the exhale, the long exhale and the inhale. So
Mhm.
I feel very relaxed
And
already,
that's
Jessica.
good.
I
I'm
gotta tell
glad
you.
to hear it. Good. And just another example. So one client had a strict boundary around Friday nights, no showings, no calls. Other clients have a ritual around a 60-second breathing exercise or reset before walking into a tough meeting. And these small habits can really add up. So I just invite you to think about where you can incorporate those into your own day-to-day life. So, as you know, you're in a profession where stress is part of the deal, but struggling through it doesn't have to be. Before we wrap up, I just want to say I know how much this work asks of you, and you're often holding so much more than people realize. Your clients' hopes, pressure to perform, constant communication, and probably oftentimes very little space to pause and reflect. So, if any part of today's conversation hit home for you, if you've been feeling overwhelmed or stuck, or if you're running on empty more often than not, please know that you don't have to figure it out alone. Your well-being is not a luxury. It's foundational to the impact you want to make and the life you want to live. So, in addition to talks like this, I work individually with clients in two ways, through therapy and coaching. Therapy is often a deeper space to explore stress patterns and emotional well-being, and coaching is more structured and action focused, which can be great if you're navigating challenges like leadership or burnout or boundary setting. So if you're curious about either, it would be great to connect, and you can find me my email here or on my website. And thank you for making the time to invest in your own well-being. It really is the foundation for everything else.
Jessica, that was fantastic. I gotta say, thank you so much. That was really needed, I think. I think it's something we've totally, I think, have never broached kind of this subject as in a real estate profession, but it's definitely needed. And I also want to thank everybody in the in the chat, everyone who attended, for interacting so much, and sharing, John Luke, and everybody up there sharing kind of stories of you know, uh the hardships they've gone through, panic attacks and personal things and how they deal with it. So, really great session, and I'd love to have you back in the
Sure,
future.
yeah.
And I know I feel already better. So,
Yeah, that's great. No, I'm happy to be here, and I think it's just nice to have these little reminders of
awesome.
all
And
things.
everyone in the chat saying thank you as well. I see here. And so fantastic job. And wanted to, yeah, just thank everybody for attending. And thanks, Jessica, so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend and apply those, in your everyday daily life. There's great tips. So,
Sounds good.
um, take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Make sure to check out our pro support page for additional videos on a full range of topics. And don't forget to click that subscribe button on our MLS Listings YouTube page.